Hello everyone. Welcome to this year's World Mental Health Day Festival. Thanks all for coming. How's everyone feeling today? You guys all right? Feeling excited about the day? Yeah, woohoo! Thank you all for coming to this panel. This is the Decision Makers panel, Lifting the Lid. So essentially, we've got some experts in the field, and we're going to be looking at how decisions are made regarding mental health, and how we're going to ask the questions about how young people can get involved in this and how young people can exercise their power to do so. So my name is Emma Thornton. I am on the youth board for organising, co-producing and co-creating the festival today. We were under the great care of Thrive London and Living Proof, so big shout out to you guys, thank you very much. I've recently finished a Masters in Creative Arts and Mental Health, so I'm extremely passionate about finding new ways, not just medical ways, but other ways that mental health can be helped and can be supported, and how young people can be involved in that, because essentially if they're the ones that need the help, then they should be the ones who help drive how that help is created and done. So that leads me on to introducing our experts for this panel. So first of all, Jasmine, if you could just introduce yourself, a bit about who you are and what you do, please.
Hi everyone, I'm Jazzminejada George. I'm the chair of the London Youth Assembly and a member of Havering Youth Council. So with the type of work I do, it's really about encouraging young people's voices to be listened to by those politicians, by those policymakers, ensuring that our voice is at the forefront. That's why it's really important to be here today, again, by young people, for young people. So this is going to be a great panel and there's going to be lots of great work being produced. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Perpetua Kamwendo. I'm a health and justice worker. I work in the NHS England Health and Justice team. I'm a children and young people lead. For the benefit of people who are visually challenged, I'm a Black African woman. I've got braids, I'm dark-skinned, and I am wearing black trousers and a black and white striped polo neck top. And my pronouns are she, her. So I'm a children and young people lead in the NHS England Health and Justice team. I'm a nurse by background, learning disability nurse and mental health nurse by background. I find my job really, really exciting, working with young people, looking at how we can make the services that we commission. So the services we commission are in the secure estate, so the YOIs, the prisons, in the community, how we can make them more child-focused so that young people are not adultified, and how we can really, really look at those gaps and strengthen the voice of young people and make sure that they have better outcomes. And I'm really excited to hear about what young people think about what we can do to get them more involved. Thank you.
Amazing, thank you. Tim?
Hello, hi everyone. I'm Tim Aldridge. I'm the Corporate Director for Children and Young People Services for the London Borough of Newham, so I work locally. And I also I'm a lead for the London Directors of Children's Services for Children and Young People's Mental Health. So really pleased to be here. And in my sort of day job, I'm responsible for children's social care, education and health services for children and young people in the local authority. Good to meet you.
Hi everybody, my name's Jacqui Dyer. I'm the co-lead for Thrive London from inception. I'm also the deputy leader of Lambeth Council and one of the directors of Black Thrive Global, having established Black Thrive Lambeth and going further afield. I'm an Equalities advisor for mental health with NHS England and with Health Education England, and absolutely delighted to be here today to support our children and young people in decision making.
Great, thank you guys. So to start, I'm just going to ask a question. If it speaks to any of you, kind of just, say, and then we can just have a discussion. So first of all, how have you seen policy decisions being made at different levels of the system, from the government down to local authorities? Anyone want to kick off?
I'm holding the mic, so just let me know if anyone else wants to come in there. So I suppose in terms of decision making, I can probably speak best in terms of local government and a local authority area, but also sort of regionally across London. And I think when it works really well, It involves local communities, young people. It involves an element of co-production, an understanding of lived experience, an understanding of the impact of decisions on those people who would receive services. When it works badly, it's a traditional sort of bureaucratic, looking at the data sort of way of decision making. And to be totally honest, I've seen it work in both of those ways. So it's imperfect, I would say.
I'm probably not going to say anything new from what Tim has just said. I work in the health service, and I think I've seen two sides of it as well. When it works really well, then people that are going to experience the services are involved. But then when it doesn't, it's not very clear, and then it's sort of up there down to everybody else. So I definitely also feel that it could work so much better. And as I said before, there's lots of learning for us in health to do around that.
Thank you. Just on that, sorry, how often do you think it is that people are involved with their own kind of, if they're the ones who need the care, how often is it that they're involved with that decision?
I think more and more now it's being recognized that experts aren't people that have got the professional names. Experts are people that are experts by experience. So I am pleased to say that in my line of work, I hear that more and more. When I started off as a nurse, even the term experts by experience, this is 20 years ago when I started as a nurse, wasn't even something that was talked about. But I'm pleased to say that over the past 20 years, I've seen a real revolution, there's a real disruption, and one thing that I can say is the voices of people with lived experience have been one of the biggest sort of disruptors to the system, and it's been challenging because it means we have to change the way we think, we have to learn a different language, and we actually have to meet people where they are, and that's good. So yeah, I think it's getting better.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's great to hear that it's starting to change, sort of. Okay, do you want to? Oh, sorry, Jacqui. Go on, Jasmine.
With the London Youth Assembly, as young people, how we've tried to help implement change with policies, we've done some research which we put together and we've presented that to the Mayor of London. So his team in office can look at that and see if that's a great idea for us young people to be listened to. But we definitely need more opportunities because for us to kind of get our voice listened to, we've got to work really hard. They're not really coming to us asking, what do you think about this? So, I've also been a part of a roundtable where we've suggested some ideas and they actually have been put in place. So that's some positive, but yeah.
That's great, thank you. Yes.
So there's different levels of policy decisions that are made. So you've talked about there's some national level, there's some regional level, and there's like local level, community level. And I think it's relevant and really critical that all people are involved at all levels that represent the populations that are being served by the policies that are being created. And that's no more critical than those policies what are impacting on, for example, children and young people. So at the centre of that must be children and young people articulating what the policies are that are needed to respond to their lived experience. So that I think that that's really critical. At national level, in terms of when we were developing some of the Mental Health Act review recommendations, we did have research groups, engagements with children and young people for their views. So it can be done at a national level in that regard. Equally within sort of NHS work, there's more engagement around co-production, around some of the policy ideas and some of the service transformation at that strategic policy kind of level of getting a cross-section of the diverse population that make up children and young people across all their equality protected characteristics, because it's no use having a particular set of children and young people that's not representative of the diversity of experiences that children and young people have. So that intersectionality and that across the equality protector characteristics helps to engender more equity in terms of the thinking that then informs what policies kind of emerge. And for me, that needs replication in a sense, that dynamic, that way of being, that co-production, that co-engagement, every stage of the way, even to thinking about as well, like what delivery looks like of those policy recommendations. Why are we not having children and young people really considered to support, you know, in terms of their own development as well, in that sort of co-delivery? So, for example, at the local level, where our children and young people are involved in community research in a sense that is looking at stop and search that impacts on black children and young people, but actually all demographics of children and young people. But in Lambeth, for example, it's particularly profound that it's black children and young people. And they're involved in looking at what the research is saying, that they've surveyed schools and so forth, and helping to analyse that and coming up with a solution that is both training, helping to train the police force, and actually helping to train communities. And I think that that's a really empowering way of, and creative way of getting children and young people kind of like really proactively engaged. So what I'm saying, and I've just given two examples, one at national and one at a very local level, is that it's the will. You know, where there's a will, there's always a way to engage children and young people in policy and decision making.
Yeah, for sure. And on that as well, following that, is there then, do you think, are the decision makers actually kind of wanting that to happen? Do you think it is everywhere, kind of at the national and the local level happening, or is there more that needs to be done, essentially?
That's a good question, you know, in the sense that I think that the want is there somewhere, but the want that then emerges in the openness to make it happen and the effort to get out of one's sort of, this is the way we do things, and it's taking the risk to go into the unknown, knowing that you're not going to be the expert all of the time, and not everybody in various decision-making arenas is prepared to kind of like let that power go or to share power. And that's the kind of thing. One thing that I really am so proud of is the way that we as Thrive London have actually really made that really central to have lived experts by experience as a core part of how we do business. So it can be done. It's, I think, the willingness to do things differently, which is perhaps the thing that makes it either slow-mo or faster or, you know, like, so that you can get it embedded into the DNA of how we do things, which is much more inclusive. And I just think that that principle applies for children and young people, people with disabilities, people with, you know, that come from racialized communities, people, you know, where difference, you know, manifests in a society where you experience more vulnerabilities, more discrimination, more disadvantage, and that shows up in terms of poor levels, higher risk factors for mental health. So if you don't understand those complexities, how are you going to help to respond to that? You're kind of like, it's a kind of top-down thing based on your kind of assumptions or, you know, I don't know. You know I don't know. No, I think, anyway, you know what I mean, right?
No, for sure. I think on that, it's that, yeah, it's if people at the top aren't wanting to kind of, release that power a bit and actually be like, oh, we need to go to the people that have this experience to be like, they know what they need, or they're the ones who, if we work with them, will be able to come up with what they need. And if they're not like able to relinquish that power almost, then it's not gonna change.
And I think the with word is the operative thing. Like with, not to, not at, with.
With,
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to add, if that's okay. Totally agree. I think it does require decision makers to give up some power, and actually takes you to a less comfortable place. And I think that's not always easy for some of us. And I think, you know, if you're really serious about co-production, it takes a lot of thought, a lot of effort, takes some time, it takes energy, and you've got to be committed to it, to see it through and to do it properly. And some examples I've got is in Newham we've signed up to a children's charter, which is about some of the principles that governs the work we do with children and young people and how we involve them in decision making. And across London, we've just signed a sort of partnership agreement between local government, provider collaboratives and other NHS bodies about principles of how we work together to keep young people at the centre of what we do when it comes to mental health. But it's one thing to sign up to principles, it's another thing to enact that, and I think that's still a test we need to pass.
So how does it work then? How do the young people get involved? How are they able to? What is the charter that gets put forward to then that actually happen?
So just an example, in Newham, there was a series of co-production events across the borough, whether it's sort of youth assembly members or school council members who came together to work with our youth empowerment service to draw up those principles, and then that set of principles went to our cabinet and was signed off on a local democratic basis. So again, that's the start of the journey though. The true test is whether we're able to live to those principles.
I wanted to just ask Jasmine kind of the similar question then, please. Being on the London Youth Assembly, do you feel like did you put yourself forward for that? Did people come to you and ask you, we've got these things that we want changed or we want to address, or is it, you had to seek that out almost?
Definitely, I had to put myself forward for that. So even now, I will find opportunities and then go back to the team. How do we get there? How do we say, hi, we're the London Youth Assembly? And we do want to work with these organisations. We have been able to make many connections this assembly year, but definitely more need to be done. So with some opportunities and events, people have now started to come to the London Youth Assembly. They're seeing us do things, but we've had to start. But with young people, we have a voice and we really and truly do want to be listened to. That's why if you see up and across London, we've got our youth councils, we've got youth groups, and we do have the London Youth Assembly. So we're asking them, please listen to us, kind of thing.
Great, thank you. That's the thing. I think there are things out there, but it seems like there needs to be more, essentially. So on that, what do you think is the biggest challenge that's facing young Londoners right now? The things that you're seeing that needs to be addressed?
Mental health. We did a survey and mental health was a very up there one. I think coming out of lockdown, people's thought processes are sometimes different, socialising and stuff like that. Definitely safety as well. We're seeing knife crime, that's on the rise. Young people don't really feel safe, pop into the shop, especially in certain parts of London where there's like more gangs and different gangs and like very close together. So yeah, it's quite worrying. Yeah. You put on the news and then you're seeing someone has sadly stabbed them, they're passed away. So we're thinking, when is this going to stop? We put together campaigns, we're asking, but yeah, it's quite worrying. Definitely education is a big worry, which does, again, affect young people's mental well-being. There's a big uncertainty. So coming out of COVID, our GCSEs were a bit different. This year's GCSEs, they had that advanced information. But now we're thinking, what's going to happen to the current year 11s when it's our GCSEs? How would that be? Is COVID going to be on a rise again? What has the government put in place for us? And they've not released much or anything information, so a big uncertainty.
For sure, yeah. Thank you. What do you guys think, kind of being on the other side of it then, in terms of, do you see these problems, these issues? Are there only certain ones, or is it, what is there?
Yeah, no, certainly all of those issues Jasmine's raised. Safety is a key concern for lots of young people. Education and young people's future is also a key area of concern. And also from some of our co-production work, the climate emergency and the environment, that was a really strong priority that came across from young people. So yeah, a whole range of issues, and I think Jasmine's right in saying sort of the pandemic and lockdown sort of brought out or amplified some of those areas, and we can also see through, I guess, social media, the way some of those concerns and anxieties can be amplified at times.
It's interesting because each of those areas, those key areas that are of concern to children and young people and those people who care about our children and young people, safety, education, climate emergency. Oh, I'm sure I'm loud enough already. All of those, underneath all of those concerns is emotional well-being and mental health, and the impact that that has on those concerns have on our emotional health and well-being. And so so it's clear, obviously, that mental health is a significant concern for our children and young people, but it's a concern for everybody because we all have mental health on a spectrum, and I think it's really important to understand that. Some people have mental health and then others just have physical health. There's no such thing. I always get really quite amused by how now that's not standard understanding in a way. But yeah, I think that the whole agenda, all of the agendas, we need to really pay attention to underpinning all of that. People's ability to thrive in any of these arenas is, good support in terms of emotional health and well-being. And I think that there's significant opportunities, once again, for children and young people to articulate what is needed in relation to that, be that pertaining to climate emergency, be that pertaining to education, be that pertaining to safety, as I've said already, around the stop and search in relation to how our local communities are policed. Actually, the most concerning thing is the impact of the way stop and search has been conducted without dignity and respect, and how that is impacting on our children and young people's mental health. And this is some kind of research that's never really surfaced before, because we split. It's like, so yeah, it's very important as articulated.
Yeah, I think as well, it's what you were saying. It's almost like that mental health is almost this thing that some people think is just if it goes wrong, that that's it. Then you've got mental health because you've got mental health problems. But it's like everyone's mental health is there and needs to be looked after. Yes. And actually it's the social, the educational, the economical things in life that then affects that. And it's actually people need to realise that, and decision makers need to realise that, yeah, these underpinning things are the things that are affecting mental health and well-being, and that's what needs to be addressed.
Yeah, no, agreed. I'll just pass on a minute. And I think during the pandemic, what we saw was lots of young people feeling quite isolated. The impact that had on family relationships and the sort of support network that for some young people it was, in some ways it was a positive experience because it brought them closer to family members. For others, it amplified and exacerbated some existing challenges and issues that they were experiencing. So I think I totally agree with you. It's important we understand a sort of systemic approach to mental health and how that fits with family and friends networks, and how actually the solution to mental health problems sometimes is not a medical therapeutic model, but actually is more of a social activity-based model.
I was just going to say that we did some work to understand what young people thought they needed from us. We were piloting a service, so we did some community engagement work. So we have a very brilliant group of young people that work in a service user organization that work with us. And so they went out and engaged with the community. So they were really talking to young people that would be likely involved in knife crime, gangs, and just marginalized communities. And one of the things that they said was just the safety was a big thing that came up. Gentrification was another issue for them. The whole idea of community and what that meant, and where they were feeling that like they were being pushed out of areas that they felt that they belonged in, but actually they were being made to feel that they didn't belong in those areas. The whole idea of trust. So mental health came up, but what did it mean to feel like you could trust a professional or someone to talk about your mental health? Because sometimes they felt that they were looked at as the first thing that people saw was the crime that they committed, rather than actually what happened to them. So that really opened up our eyes in terms of thinking about young people as, the whole person. So it's not the medicalized element, it's what's happened to you before. How did you get into that? So really understanding the experience of young people and really thinking about things from a point of, you've had this traumatic stuff that's happened to you, you've experienced racism, poverty, lots of different pressures, and then you've come here and more trauma has happened. So how can I make sure that I'm not traumatizing you by, trying to support you? So, there's a lot of learning for us as well.
For sure. Yeah, that's amazing. And it's amazing work to get people involved. It's the lived experience. People have had lived experience. How do we work through that? And how then do you think that young people that want to be involved in creating these changes, how can they get involved? What is there that's out there? If it's not just people, from higher up coming to you, if you want to actually go out there and get involved, how can you? Yeah.
So when you picked up on that question earlier, I was thinking, so one of the challenges that we have is we know that people that get involved tend to be people that usually get involved. It's really easy for them to come forward and they're confident and they say what they feel. But then, a lot of the times there's people that don't feel that they'll be heard, that don't feel that they have the agency or that they should even bother getting involved. That's quite difficult, and that's something that actually I would want to understand. What are the things that we can do? So referencing what I talked about when we did the community engagement, one of the things young people said to us was, stop sending us leaflets. We're not reading leaflets. We are on Instagram, we're TikToking, we're doing all these things, and you guys are sending us leaflets. So I think it's for us to actually be proactive and to think about, actually, where are young people getting involved? Where are they communicating, and how can we make sure that we get involved and talk to them? I think it's a lot for us to think about what can we do to just make it easier for young people and for them to feel like, actually, if they do tell us things, we are actually going to make something to change things with them, and then come back to them and say to them, you said this is what we did, so how can we make it better together? I think that's really important, because hearing from young people is great, but then sometimes we take that information and then off we go, and then we never come back to you and tell you what we've done with it.
I was going to say it's not always one size fits all. I think when young people access mental health services, it's very generic, and I feel like sometimes they hope that size is going to fit everyone, which is not the case. For example, with youth services, with mental wellbeing, for example, CAMS, I think it really needs to kind of be for young people, by young people. Young people need to be involved in that research and think, for us, what's going to be the best suitable way pushing forward. In terms of getting involved, there is a few options. So I can speak on my personal experiences. I joined my youth council at 13, and that was the best thing I could have done with my passions and getting my voice listened to. But I feel you really got to put the work in if you want your voice to be respected, and actually for them to take on board what you said. A lot of work needs to kind of come with that. So you've got the youth council, we have the London Youth Assembly, which is a great way, because as the chair of it, we're trying to bring, the deputy mayor has visited us, where young people have been able to vocalise their opinions, and she's been able to take on board what we said. We've had some events where the mayor's been there, and we've also conducted some pieces of research. Thinking with the NHS, you do have the NHS Youth Forum, but you're really going to have to research. And for a young person, you don't know where to start. When I was 13, I didn't know I had a local youth council. I remember I was in school, we did the Make Your Mark, and I was like, I'm really interested, knife crime's on the rise, and I really just want to raise my opinions. I want to get involved in a campaign, but you're going to have to do some research. But I feel like these opportunities should be widely promoted. That's something we're trying to do, but I think within organisations, I think they should have a youth board, if it's really based for young people, and try and promote that as much as possible so other young individuals can find these opportunities and get involved.
Great, thank you. So just kind of to wrap up before we go to the Q&A, just a quick one. What's your biggest hope for young Londoners then, in this sense?
Oh, I want young Londoners to thrive. thrive and flourish on every level.
Yeah.
And for us to, as the other generations, to really work in a respectful way in supporting them for that flourishment. That's what I want for young Londoners.
Yeah, for me, very similar. I'd like young Londoners to feel like their voice is being heard and that they have influence over decisions and they have choices, but also that they are in an environment, whether it's at home or at school, that supports them being the best they can be, and that's really what I would hope.
I think it's the same as what Tim and Jacqui have just said. I want the young Londoners to realize their dreams and aspirations. Yeah.
Amazing.
I want us to have a real power. If we say something, I really want that to be taken on board and listened to us. As we are the now, we are the future. And for example, if a young person wants to be astronaut, they can be an astronaut and they can believe in that. And that is realistic if they put the work in. And I want there to be opportunities for them to be able to do so.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jasmine, Perpetua, Tim and Jacqui. It's been great to talk to you today. If anyone has any questions in the audience, now is the time to ask them, please.